Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. It is now 6 p.m. and the January 6, 2025 City Council meeting will come to order. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you as a community, leaning on your strength and grace as we continue our journey of recovery and renewal. As we gather for this meeting, we lift you up. We lift up to you our beloved city of Bel-Air Beach, grateful for the courage and hope you have instilled in our hearts over these past months and for the promise of a new year. Lord, we thank you for the progress made since Hurricanes Helene and Milton struck. We are grateful that many families can move forward, receiving permits to repair their homes and rebuild their lives. We pray for those who have sold their properties and moved away, asking that you bless and guide them in their new beginnings. Grant those still navigating the challenges of rebuilding strength, patience, and encouragement. As we embrace this new year, we ask for your blessings over the opportunities and challenges ahead. Help us to approach each day with renewed hope and determination, trusting in your guidance as we rebuild and restore. Bless Bel-Air Beach, its people, and its future. May this new year bring kindness, hope, and renewed blessings, reminding us of your love and faithfulness. In your holy name we pray, amen. Now please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Renee, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Frank Bankert.
Present.
Councilmember Todd Harper.
Present.
Councilmember Kim Schott Elliott.
Present.
Councilmember Jody Shirley.
Here.
Councilmember Anders Wellings.
Present.
Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here.
City Manager Kyle Riefler.
Here.
And City Attorney Randy Mora.
Present. All right, so we're missing one today.
Yes.
Our first order of business is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion. Motion is made by Frank Bankert. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Todd Harper. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Next, we have presentations from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, beginning with the monthly law enforcement report from...
Sure. Good evening, Council. I'm Sergeant Bolt with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. The monthly report that I'm going to present tonight is for November of 2024. The good thing is there wasn't any violent crime that occurred in November. There were 2 assaults. Those were involving non-residents here in Bel-Air Beach. But one was over the use of a shower facility over by Morgan Park. So you never know what you're going to get. And then we had a couple arrests. Looks like they were traffic offenses. One was a driving under the influence, which also had possession of drugs involved in that arrest. And then 2 folks were arrested for not having a driver's license. There's a lot of proactive activity here in the city of Bel-Air Beach from our deputies. The vast majority was traffic stops, direct patrols, and ordinance violations. And some of the ordinance violations that we had encountered were constructions on Sunday, solicitors being in the city, an RV in the driveway, dogs on the beach, and those similar activities. All right, when it comes to crashes, there was only 1 crash reported in the city. I looked at this crash, it wasn't a major crash, and there wasn't any injuries reported in the crash, so that's good. And then finally, we have 163 warnings and citations issued in the city for November. And then looking forward after the November analysis, I look forward to today. There wasn't any major crashes. There weren't any major crimes that occurred to today from November.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Any questions?
Any questions from the council? Comments? Thank you very much, Sergeant.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right, now we're on to the monthly code enforcement report. Do we not have a presenter tonight?
No, we do not. Both our code deputies are unavailable. We have Deputy Trump, who's out on a medical leave, and then Deputy Klapka, who's been filling in. He's actually out of town. So I'll just cover real quick what's been done as far as code enforcement. Most of it's been surrounding, cleanup and the temporary signage after the storm. What Deputy Klapka has been focusing on in the time he's been here later in the month is just, identifying where there's debris piles still set out in the right of way and contacting the residents to make sure there's a plan for removal. And we're at the point now, since we've had the contractors come through and did the final pass, that anything additional is either going to be included as part of a construction job or at the resident's expense to have a special pickup. And it's just a little lighter this month with the holidays, but we did our breakdown, and like I said, Deputy Trump will be on leave, expecting to come back in the month of February. So until then, we'll have Deputy Clark.
All right. Any questions or comments for City Manager Riefler on the code enforcement report? All right. Now we'll move on to item 3, which is a presentation from the Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue District. So we do have a presenter. Please come on up, sir, and introduce yourself.
Good evening, District Chief Raish. I'm here on behalf of Chief Davidson this evening. He has a scheduling conflict, so he was unable to attend. Quick report, there was 21 emergency responses in Bel Air for the month of December. This included fire alarms, electrical hazards, and medical emergencies. And then next item I have is, as many of you may know or not know, Chief Davidson put in his paperwork to retire on February 21st. He has plans to travel and spend time with his family and his new grandson, who is 4 weeks old. The district is actively looking for a new fire chief. Chief Davidson has expressed that he will stay past February if needed until a suitable replacement is found. That is all I have.
Questions or comments? Whenever you see Chief Davidson, let him know that we greatly appreciate the efforts, even though we know that he hit a lot of brick walls. There's nothing wrong with trying.
We appreciate your support. He said he will be here to present for the month of February.
Excellent.
February meeting.
Okay, and thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
All right, now we are on to the city attorney report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excited to be starting 2025, working with you folks.
Are we skipping number 4, the quarterly reports from all the boards?
That's what I'm missing. I knew there was something I'm missing. All of the apparently I dropped a sheet of paper. Well, let's start with that. Let's start with the Citizens Advisory.
They do not have a report. They have not met during the last quarter.
Okay, let's do code enforcement. I'm sorry, Board of Adjustments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jody. I'm Mike Kelly, the Chairman of the Board of Adjustment, to report that in the last quarter of 2024, we only had one hearing. It was in October, but it was a lengthy one. It was a very complex hearing. We had 2 owners on Donato Drive that applied for 5 variances to the Board of Adjustment. All 5 of those variances were approved. And I understand that currently the decisions of the Board of Adjustment at that hearing are now being appealed by a neighbor to the 6th Circuit Court in Pinellas County. If any of you have more information about that or more updated information, I appreciate it. Other than that, it was well done by a good board, and a vacancy that we had a month later. Thank you, council, for approving Jerry Wizzawati to our full board. The gentleman was not present the day he was up at the council meeting for approval. He was out of state, but he's been an alternate for 3 years, so he filled in rather well at the October hearing, and he will continue to fill in well with us as a full board member.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell us a little bit about the nature of those variance requests?
It was a combined dock request. Two neighbors living next door to each other are combining to put in a new dock that extends almost 70 feet out into the water over an existing area of beach that is behind both homes. Each representative, each homeowner was represented by counsel, as was a neighbor that is now that has made the appeal. So it was a very lengthy, very complex process that evening, but it was well handled, and we'll move forward from here.
What were the factors that led you to approve the 70-foot extension?
Because it had to go over an area of beach to get to enough water to where marine engineers said that there would be enough for the boat or the neighbors' boats to get out into navigable water. There were marine engineers there too. Randy, you want to lead into that?
I was just going to say, I would suggest that we look to the minutes and the record below to inform what the board, rather than put the chair in the position of summarizing a fairly lengthy proceeding into a concise statement. Especially with appeals pending, I just think it best to just defer to the record.
Thank you, Randy.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Kelly? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now we're skipping the Citizen Advisory Committee and moving on to the Parks and Recreation Board. It's my understanding that Renee will be giving that presentation.
Yes, Chair Patty Roberts was unable to attend this evening, but she left a few notes. She first wanted to state that they are looking for new members. They have lost a couple of members recently, and they're down to 3. They would greatly appreciate any help that anyone can offer. They are still selling merchandise here at City Hall, beach towels, koozies, water bottles, things of that nature. Some of their events were postponed due to the hurricanes, but they resumed in December with the holiday social, which had a very good turnout. And they started doing beach cleanup again in January. It's going to be the first Saturday of each month at the 19th Street Beach Access. And they're looking to schedule some February and March blood drives, and they're working on the health and safety fair as well.
Good. Questions or comments?
Is the January Sunset Social still scheduled?
That, I believe, was on a trial period, and unfortunately the hurricanes kind of took that out.
All right, thank you, Renee. All right, now we're on to planning and zoning. Hello, Mr. Prescott.
Good evening. I'm Doug Prescott. I just joined the planning and zoning office of the Atlantic for December. We had our first meeting. They made me the chair, so I'm just going to introduce myself as the chair now for the committee. Don't have anything to report. The 2 things are on your agenda tonight. You all are well aware of that we unanimously approved for you all to move forward with.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for planning and zoning? All right, thank you, Mr. Prescott. Okay, now we're up to the city attorney report.
Well, my thunder's been stolen now. No, I was going to add that they're excited to start 2025 working with you folks. A series of ordinance updates we'll be doing, as you saw some of those in the hopper, working with the planner, and you'll see some of those start coming before you, especially following planning and zoning's review. So we're working towards getting some of that in front of you to get some traction in that regard. As it relates to the reference Board of Adjustment proceedings, those are on appeal. An appeal is limited to the record below, and it is, though not unorthodox in the law, unorthodox in terms of the posture you guys are accustomed to, where in this instance the appeal is initiated by an intervener in the proceedings, a neighboring property owner challenging the relief being granted. It's not somebody who was denied a variance challenging it. So were you to look at how that's postured, it looks like it's against the city. There are not proceedings against the city, it's proceedings challenging the decision made. Of course, it is at first in terms of the appellant and appellee, but it's not a lawsuit against the city in the ordinary construct in which someone's seeking damages or anything of the sort. But that does remain pending at this time. The parties will brief it, and we'll let the court resolve as appropriate. And that is, by the way, the natural procedure for that. When a decision of the Board of Adjustment is challenged or appealed, it goes to the circuit court. So that's where that's postured. Otherwise, just continuing to work with your city manager and team as appropriate on any hurricane response recovery efforts and any analysis needed that way. A reminder, as we've started the new year for all our elected members up here, let's restart your clock on getting your 4 hours at some point this year. I'm not suggesting you need to do that right this moment, but your 4-hour training in compliance with that and your financial disclosure statements that will be filed later this year. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and just again, glad to be here working with you folks.
Council.
I have a question on the 4-hour training. So are you saying the training I completed in December is now needs to be
You're in a slightly different posture because you folks were newly appointed,
Right.
and I can look at what the timing is. I don't remember offhand for people who are, there's a timetable. If you're appointed after X date, then you're good. So I'll look into that for you and make sure you're both given guidance. But for our incumbents who have been serving for some time, that's ordinarily how it goes.
So the 4-hour CE course that you just completed that I attended.
You should be fine, but I'm not going to unequivocally say that until I can. Again, I want to make sure, you pay me to give you informed advice. Right now, I'm going from the top of my head. I'd like to give you the informed advice.
Thank you.
Any other questions for city attorney? No? All right, thank you, Mr. Mora. Next up is the city manager report. Mr. Reefer.
Thank you, Mayor. So just an update on hurricane recovery. Right now, we're at the the end of December, beginning of January. This is when we were supposed to have all of our estimated reports completed. We're not quite there yet. We're about, I guesstimate about 70%. But we're coming along. I don't know if we're going to have in the next couple of weeks, hopefully all of them. But like, doing detailed reviews, we've been able to process 134 storm repair permits for the roughly, I would say, 300 plus structures that are affected to the point that they would need some kind of repair. So we're coming along. Still want to focus on getting all of the reports, getting all the letters out, and then circling back around on some of the properties that we haven't heard anything from, but we're working through. And currently we're at about 50 structures that are categorized as substantially damaged right now. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to stay that way. It just, the letters, the reports come out, we get the percent of damage, and we send the letters appropriately. Some of them we've already overturned through the detailed process, but again, we're working through it all. One thing I wanted to bring up was the 12th Street beach access. That's the remaining access that is not open. We've made progress on it, and I'd like to share some pictures. Share my screen. Okay, so that's currently the state of the actual earth after it comes out of the parking lot. We still got some sand to clean out of the parking lot, but that can be done easily, blowing it out. If you look in the back here, you'll see, if you can see, those are all the bricks. We palletized the bricks, the paper bricks that were at the park. Let me back out of this. I'm good. So looking on the walk, going out to the steps that are built into the seawall at 12th Street, the sidewalk goes about 2/3. We had to remove it after that because it got undermined. Again, there were pavers up against the seawall. 12th Street had one of the nicest paving jobs with the bricks. We want to save them, possibly put them back at some point, but at this time, I would like to council's opinion on it, if we just want to get this park open back up. So what we would need to do so would be to form out the rest of the sidewalk to get to the stairs for the access. And then we would also need to do some concrete next to the seawall so that there's some paved area for the benches. And then we can also reinstall a shower. But I'll purchase a new shower just because it was pretty corroded from the salt water. But I figure as we're still kind of working through the interlocal agreement and such, when it comes to just getting this park open, that we just, get a quote to either I have the guys pour the concrete or I get a concrete contractor to come in and just finish the sidewalk and do kind of a minimal to get it back open. Does council have any feedback on that?
Council?
Do we have a price for the concrete work that needs to be done? No.
No, I don't expect it. Minimum about 2 yards might be needed, but we could do a little bit more depending on our pricing.
Minimum or maximum?
Minimum, I think you need a yard at least to get the sidewalk to the steps, and then maybe another yard worth of pavement for the benches.
Are we going to form it, or are they going to have a contractor for it?
Again, I can get pricing. It's something that we could do in-house, but it may be just as easy to get if we can get someone interested in the job.
I'm in favor of moving forward with it, if you're asking our opinion. I would like to have some information, but it's, it needs to be done, so whatever that looks like. And I think we hire a contractor to do the forming.
Right.
Rather than finishing, rather than us trying to get staff to do it. Would be my opinion.
Okay, I'll start getting some pricing on that, but yeah, the idea would just be to, get the access so people can use it, and then from there we'll start, getting all the irrigation working in preparation for sod replacement.
Kim, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I certainly don't have any objection to moving ahead and certainly getting it open as quickly as we can and restoring it to the condition it was in. But as we do that, I'd like that we consider opportunities for improvements. For one, there's never enough seating. The benches are inadequate for the number of people that come to watch the sunset or to just gather in the evening. And there's no shade at all. And considering the limitations in the past that have been finding the shade on the beach, there's none at the access points either for somebody that might just want to get away from the direct sun for a little while or just sit and enjoy the scenery. So I'd like us to be able to consider going forward some minimal improvements that we can make there.
Any other comments? Yes?
Yeah, I'd also be in favor of moving ahead if they really going to have a contractor. I'm kind of curious about that neighboring property that had the wall, there's a lot of erosion under it. Has that been addressed, or what's the deal? Do we need to address that?
That is the mayor's, Mayor Bloom's wall. And what I did tell him, he wants to get concrete underneath that wall. So I told him that when we do start looking at concrete contractors, that I would give him the information. But yeah, he's going to shore up his wall. We've just kind of left it. That's kind of a moving piece as well. We'll see. We'll keep a barrier there for safety until he's there figured out.
As far as the lands, go ahead, Mr. Baker.
I was just, you and your crew did an excellent job. I was out there with Grady, was stacking up bricks and bending over. There was a ton of bricks to stack. You did an excellent job. I always give you credit, but your crew is where it really should be emphasized is doing that. And they really cleaned out. I can't believe they cleaned 6th Street, 19th Street up that quick. And that's almost workable. When you say you're going to put that concrete in, is that going to be a temporary pad or is that going to be a permanent pad?
I've put the sidewalk back to be permanent, and maybe the pad would be something temporary until further decisions are made.
I will say, even though it's terrible what happened, we have much more viewing capacity than what we had because we had the dunes. It was surprising that the dunes were built up and overgrown so much that none of us had any idea idea that there was a staircase at one of the accesses. So I think it's, as Councilmember Shaw Elliott said, this is a great time to take advantage of a bad situation and improve on what we had. So I'm all for it. Any other comments about that? Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Reefer?
Yes. Yeah, let me stop sharing this. So I'll have a meeting with Duke this month. Hopefully they're still on schedule because they're supposed to resume our project this month. I will give you an update on that. The stormwater project, we're at the point now where we've done all the curb replacement and the paving, and now they're focusing on all the lining that needs to be done. We want to start working at the 18th Street outfall. That's an area that's had a lot of infiltration based on the pipe being in bad condition. So that's where we're going to next. There's lining to be done on 3rd and 4th still. There's lining on 12th, 13th, and some other spots throughout the city. So spots on Bay Shore, we got a couple of pipes that are compromised, so we'll be doing that. And then they'll also be extending the elliptical pipe from the newly installed great inlets that are at the swale on, which would be Harbor Drive, where 9th Street ends to Harbor Drive. And then we'll be getting our flange valve into that pipe to prevent the backflow into that retention pond. And in the code review, we have the first reading on an ordinance tonight that was looked at by the Planning and Zoning Board. We have another meeting scheduled on Wednesday, January 15th at 10 a.m. And we're going to continue to work through our chapters with the recommendations to pass the ordinances from the code review. And the 9th Street Pump Station design, I've had a meeting with Larry and Gemini Engineering staff after, and they are preparing our plans and presentation for Monday, January 27th. If we can do a work session that day or another day, I can schedule it. Just have that as a tentative date.
What's the, how much time do you think you need allotted for that?
I think they could cover their portion, 45 minutes to an hour.
We could do, I mean, I wanted to have one anyway. Do you think we should have them both at the same time? Or do you think we should break it up?
I think we can do multiple topics.
Okay. Yeah. That's good to know. By the way, 22nd Street looks way better than I thought it would. They actually did a great job with patching the one little area right next to the curb. And they did a great job.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Anything else? Council, any more questions for the city manager? No? All right, we'll come back to you shortly. All right, now we're up to the city clerk report. Renee, you have the floor.
Other than what was included in the packet, I have nothing to report.
Any questions or comments for the city clerk? All right, thank you, Renee. All right, next up is citizen comments. If anyone would like to address the council about a topic not already on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait till you call. Would anyone like to speak? Yes, sir. Please come right on up.
My name is Peter Mahalik. I live on Harrison Avenue. And first, let me say it's very gratifying to say and see the progress that's been made in the town in clearing up after the disastrous hurricanes. But I do just have one comment. What is the story with the boat out here? Is it not on town property? And
that has been addressed, and we're going to pass it back to the city manager after citizen comments. So,
okay.
He probably has an answer for you in just very shortly.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Would anyone else like to speak? All right, citizen comments are now closed. Next is the city manager follow-up. What do you know about that boat sitting out there?
Okay, so it is in the process, and there is a contracted company that's going through and towing out all the boats. I believe they said they have 60 something I don't know. There's quite a lot of vessels. They're down in the Madeira Beach area right now, towing out their vessels. The sergeant I spoke to in the Marine Division said that he was going to put some pressure to try and get that tow unit up here for this boat. So they're working on it. All of the pieces, like the days they needed the weight, the stickers that they had to put on the boat, that's all been taken care of. So it's just a matter of that contractor getting up here to get the boat out.
So these boats have been abandoned?
Yes, they're not being taken care of by the owners, so the money is coming down through the state to take care of it.
And I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he did say that one of the challenges, they actually wanted to remove the boat several times. You may have noticed in the last month we've had super low tides. So out in front and everywhere around there is nothing but exposed sand. You can't bring in a barge that they're wanting to bring it out with. But the phases change and the tides do too. So hopefully they'll get to us very quickly.
Something that we want to be aware of is that I was walking by the other day and there were a bunch of young gentlemen climbing on the boat, looking in the windows, swinging on the bars. I know it's an attractive situation for young people to get into, but it's dangerous and it's a liability issue, I think, for the city sitting on our property. Luckily, the deputy sheriff was in the back parking lot. We mentioned it to him, and he said it happens all the time. It's a regular routine thing. So I think that's something we need to be aware of, and if there's any way that we can, in any way, cordon it off or have some further deterrence to young people climbing on it, that would be a good thing.
Razor wire.
Is it the city's liability? Because we have that other one that washed up on the other side.
Yeah, I don't know.
So now the blue
Yes,
sailing boat.
are we liable if somebody gets hurt on that?
It's not our property, it's property that's abandoned on ours. It's interesting when we have questions around like, are we liable, aren't we liable? The short answer is, regardless of what we do, we will find our name on the one side of the V. Whether or not we're liable is really a judicial determination. Are we subject to liability in the sense that somebody could put our name on one side of a V on a court filing? Always. If somebody gets injured on city property, I'm going to say, who owns the property, who owns that boat, who should have cleaned it, they'll get FDEP in there, everybody will get sued for that. But that doesn't mean that we've done anything we shouldn't have done. Anything, of course, we can do to warn or advise or deter is always a good prudent action, whether we have an obligation to do that. Attractive nuisances, as the deputy alluded to, exist everywhere. And if it wasn't that, it would be the dirt piles as people demolish and renovate their homes. People going in abandoned cement structures right now. It is bound to happen, and we can't prevent that altogether, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't consider steps where we can control that.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Any other comments from the city manager?
The other boat, I spoke with the captain today, and he was going to check to make sure that's on the list too. That's a sailboat.
Anyone else?
Could I just add to that? Speaking to the attorney, wouldn't it help, I know what happened with this, aren't we allowed, and it would also protect us to some degree, I know, as you said, you can always have some liability, is to put some posters up around that particular property or that boat, either it's on our property or not on the property, to basically make people aware not to come onto that boat, which I think would mitigate our liability in some respects, if it ever got to that point.
Mr. Riesler, would you like to comment on that, or are we moving?
I'm sorry, I thought it was for turning.
I mean, the question was, would putting some kind of signage on at or near that poster, like please do not climb on, or something that would indicate that this is not intended to be a recreational use. Again, any amount of prudence is helpful and mitigates. I don't know that the giant abandoned boat is less conspicuous than the posters, but the point is well taken. Anything we can do, whether you cordon it off, put orange paint around it, put a sign up. I tongue in cheek as she described it, they were youths. I was going to end the sentence with having fun, because that's what that's to them, right? Like, what we consider dangerous is fun to another, and I'm cognizant that a lot of this job is becoming the lawyer for the man, and the man says you shouldn't do that. That's not a good idea, and that's reasonable and prudent. I don't know that our signs will stop them, but signage can't hurt to mitigate and warn and advise. If we have the means to do so, that's a discretionary decision that we can, not necessarily must take.
That's a good idea. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. All right. Anything else, Mr. Riegler? Okay, so now we are on to the consent agenda. Item number 10. This is for approval of the December 2nd, 2024 City Council meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve is written presented.
One over here. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The consent agenda passes. All right. Now we are on to the regular agenda. This is item number 11. Consideration of ordinance 2025-01. Mr. Moore, would you please read the ordinance and then provide a brief interpretation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2025-01, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, amending the Bel Air Beach Land Development Code, specifically amending Section 94-161, governing building specifications and limitations in the RM District 1, also amending Section 94-209, governing building height in the RL District 2, providing for implementation, providing for resolution of conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This has been a first reading ordinance number 2025-01 by title only. This is part and parcel to the code revision and review that you folks previously considered. This is a discrete element of it within Chapter 94. This is not the full Chapter 94 revision. It is done so that there's, I would not say parallel, but similar revisions for both the RM District 1 and the RL District 2. And this has to do with somewhat standardizing how we're measuring. There was a question earlier, I think, made to the manager about, is it 10 feet plus one? And the manager said, well, it just kind of depends on where you are, right? And this helps to give that some guidance on how that's being measured for building heights in those districts. So you see that change. It says the building height in the RM shall not exceed 35 feet above the base flood elevation plus 1 foot measured to the highest point of the roof. Previously, it said 30 feet above the base flood elevation at the highest point of the roof, which did not give the plus 1 foot, and didn't say at, but not to. And there is a slight distinction there in terms of the precision of language. The second section, Section 3, similarly addresses that, but also addresses an issue we've seen come both before the Board of Adjustment and this body in the past on, I'm trying to build 3 stories, which stories count, which stories don't, in terms of my height limitation. And so this exposition was given to standardize that a bit more. And so what it says is 3 habitable stories may be constructed alongside a garage or storage area. So while I can't diagram that, if you have a garage, you can have story 1, story 2, story 3. If the first story is right next to, alongside a garage or storage area. Alternatively, 2 habitable stories may be constructed over a garage, so that somebody doesn't take that third, stack it on the garage, and now you're actually at 4, which was some of the confusion in how that language was being read and administered. And then to be very, very clear, no residence shall be constructed that exceeds 3 stories. The elevation requirement by the Florida Building Code is base flood elevation plus 1 foot, so it explicitly calls out that, like, when we're talking about habitable stories, BFE still applies. This isn't somehow a waiver of BFE, base flood elevation construction requirements. So that was some language there, and as I understand it, though, I'll defer to the city manager on any other genesis of this. Part of this is being prioritized and not just made part of the entire Chapter 94 rewrite, as due to unfortunate circumstances of Helene and Milton, we have people who are in a position that they're reconstructing homes and buildings, and we want to make this as clear as possible, as quickly as possible, as people redesign and redevelop, whether in the same liking kind or otherwise. Anything else you wish to add to that, Kyle?
So yes, this would just allow people that we've had variance requests in the past to allow them to build 3 habitable floors if it's possible with their property. So if you can get that first floor above that BFE, and you still have room to build another floor and another floor on top of it, and then make it go over a garage storage area, then, you know, it's possible now, rather than you only being able to have 2 habitable floors adjacent to the garage or above the garage.
Thank you, Mr. Mora, and thank you, Mr. Reefer. Before we take this to the council, would any citizen like to comment on this ordinance? All right, citizen comments are now closed. Council, I need a motion to approve this ordinance 2025-01.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilmember Harper. Would anyone like to second it? Second by Mr. Harper, you have the floor.
I happened to sit through this committee meeting with the Board of Adjustment and Governance, and the conversation makes perfectly good sense. The idea that you've either got a 2-story house above a garage, or you've got a 3-story house with a garage adjacent makes sense. I think the thing that stood up for me in this was the ability to have the front steps set back further with this modification. So therefore, there is actually more habitable space in the adjoining stories on the 2nd and 3rd floor. So I think that this will be wholeheartedly approved, especially with the expeditious nature of rebuilding it.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Mr. Wellings, did you have a comment?
Question.
Yes, Mr. Becker.
35 feet total, correct? Is that including the chimney?
Does not include the chimney, the peak of the roof. Chimney and cupola can extend further, decorative.
Now, it's my understanding that buildings aren't actually any higher. It's just that if your garage level is above base flood elevation, you are now entitled to build up to that 35 feet if you can squeeze it in next to the garage and you're not in the below base flood elevation. So in the past, people that lived on higher ground were effectively penalized because they couldn't use that bottom story, and this I believe it actually gives you the opportunity to completely populate all 3 stories that you would have anyway. I'm for it, and one reason why is because who does not go in and finish that bottom story eventually?
I have a concern though. Tell me what the elevation is of the base, what's the base flood elevation in Bel Air Beach?
It ranges from 8 to 10 feet.
So it's 8 to 10 feet. What's the average street elevation?
4.5.
So you can have 4 feet as your street elevation. You build up your lot with an additional 4 feet, and then you start, so now you're at the base flood elevation rate. And then you add 35 feet to that. That's a problem. That could be a problem.
In history, that's how it has been. We've based our height code off of where that base flood elevation exists. Before the map change in 2021, a lot of the base flood elevations on the maps were higher in Bel Air Beach, and then they kind of fell down a couple feet. And then since then, the Florida Building Code instituted the +1 foot freeboard, so that kind of brought us back up to where those maps were. So for a time period when we didn't have BFE +1, we actually lost a foot of height that someone could possibly build at Bel Air Beach. But by changing the language, it's brought us back up to be able to get that 35 feet above the BFE +1. But it's always been based on that sea level elevation. So wherever that happens to be, they could build 35 feet on top of that elevation.
And I'll just say, like, if you're looking at, one of the streets south of the light where it's a little lower, you could take this tiny little lot that you might, maybe the road elevation's 3 there, you're gonna build your lot up 5 or 6 feet, and then you have an additional 35 feet. It's gonna, I think it might create some problems. And, maybe the answer is we have an architectural review board or something. We have some architectural standards to avoid some potential problems. I mean, that's probably a question for planning and zoning board to consider, but maybe we need to consider architectural review.
That's definitely one thing we don't have very much in our code, is architectural design. A lot of times, we don't allow people to build up the lot unnecessarily higher than, typical grade and having the correct drainage. So they really can only cover and fill to a certain point that they got the correct drainage to the road. And then after that, if they are going to attempt to get at the level they can put their first livable floor, to have 3 floors, it's most likely going to be elevated on like some kind of stem wall to get that first story and go up.
But depending on the size of the lot, it could be flat to the stem wall. It could be kind of a nice one. Some challenges, that's for sure. Something to think about. And I know it's kind of late in the game to be discussing this, but something that definitely needs to be considered.
I do agree that it's possible that, especially on the south side of the bridge, that Miller Beach is going to look dramatically different by the time all of this hurricane damage shakes out. But I'm still for it. I'm still for it because, again, people are they're going to build how they want to after the fact. And I don't think anyone is going to put their garage below base flood elevation.
It's going to be interesting, especially with the smaller lots, because most of the time these larger structures are in a lot larger of a lot, and a lot of the lots we're talking about in the southern portion of the city are smaller. They're the earlier lots, so there won't be very much room.
I think the dream shot is that everyone could do it, and then you could elevate the road. That would be ideal, but that's not likely.
Any other comments? No? All right, well, let's just take it for a vote. Renee, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Harper,
Yes.
Councilmember Elliott,
Yes.
Councilmember Shirley,
No.
Councilmember Wellings,
Yes.
and Mayor Gaddis.
Yes. So the ordinance passes 5-1, and we will read this again in a month. All right, now we are on to item number 12. This is consideration of B23-01, Drainage and Street Improvement Project, change order number. Do I have to say the zeros, or can I just say 8? I don't want to get in sort of a legal challenge for not calling them out. This is for emergency repair of a damaged curb on 9th Street. Mr. Riefler, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a change order that, it's going to exceed my $10,000 threshold, so bring it to council for council approval. But really, this was to repair the curb that got damaged. It was probably only a couple weeks old before the storm, and throughout the process of just cleaning the equipment, multiple sections just got chipped and cracked. And when we came back through, we had to saw cut it and re-pour it before paving.
All right.
We included some pictures.
Would any citizen like to comment on B23-01? All right, citizen comments are closed. Council, I need a motion to approve this change order.
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilmember Shaw Elliott. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Shirley. Ms. Shaw Elliott, you have the floor.
My understanding is that these improvements have already been made.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an after the fact.
Yeah.
because when they, they came back in and started to remobilize, they realized that the investment fund would bring in the baby.
Well, we appreciate the attentiveness to this and the prompt response, and it's something that certainly needed to be done. And I ask that we get the support to pay for this improvement.
I believe that's called do it now, ask for forgiveness later. Any other comments?
I just, the first picture, I have a problem. I mean, the other one, the damages, I know firsthand because my little front door got ripped up, my mailbox was torn out. That looks like a stress crack. That, first picture, which when I was watching it before that, I didn't see any tamping really going on that much, or any concrete, crushed concrete, number 4, number 6 stone underneath that concrete. It looked like it just poured, maybe I'm wrong, hopefully I am wrong, it just poured 6 to 8 inches of concrete right on.
That is what they've been doing. They've been removing and keeping the earth, compacted as is, and Mr. Flutie was okay with it.
And I have no problems with that. I mean, I'm not going to vote against the $13,000 that needs to be repaired. It looks like crap, but I mean, when you pour the concrete right onto, now it's non-virgin soil anymore, it's been disturbed, you may have stress cracks, even though we don't experience a frost down here. That looks like a stress crack.
Any other comments? No? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, B23-01 is approved. All right, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business?
Just Kyle, you sent all council out on a permit, proposed permit, I should say, for beach nourishment in the county.
Yes.
I talked to you right after the storms, and you're saying that you don't need perpetual easements because it was an emergency situation. Is there any updated status on that?
I tried to get a timeline from Kelly Levy, the Public Works Director, and she doesn't really have one. They're making an attempt to get the funding now that these events, the disasters happened. It changes some of the requirements. But they were committed to doing it either way, but we do know that it's the time process it takes to get the sand in and get all the permitting.
I'd like to comment on that.
Please.
Personally, I think it was a big smoke and mirrors attempt to make us feel good, because whenever City Manager Reefler reached out and said, can you give me a timeline? Because it looked like, according to that letter, they were getting ready to move. No, they were getting ready to wait. And they're still hanging on word of language and the Army Corps of Engineers being forced into change their ways before they'll spend the county's, I don't even think it's the county's money, it's the bed taxpayers' money, but they've applied for permits, which is a good thing because it's going to happen anyway, but those permits are no good if the Army Corps of Engineers is the one doing the project. So even if they finally get approval, you're still looking at 1 to 2 years before they even begin moving.
I didn't want to hear that.
Yeah. So whenever I'm at the TDC meetings, I can assure you I'm very vocal about this. I bring it up every opportunity I get.
Dave, am I correct in saying that that permit that was requested was purely for dredging certain passes and areas, not necessarily directed towards our beach as much as it was dredging out John's Pass?
Actually, that was directed at our beach. What I saw on the map was half of Sand Key down to where it ends at Bel Air Shore. So at least it's something, but I still don't think that they're prepared to actually do it.
Shores meeting, and I pled them not to call you because one of the commissioners brought up about the piles of sand, that's state sand they dumped. And they wanted us to move it. And I said, Kyle's on vacation, please leave him alone until the first of the year. I don't know if we can move that. Well, did we ever get our John Deere back or anything?
We were getting it back.
Yeah.
We've took the skid and moved some sand around as best we can. We're not going to be able to make a perfect tune, but we tried to spread it out where people wanted it moved. But I did speak with the city clerk at Bel Air Shore and asked that if they do want it spread out on Bel Air Shore, they just put it in writing so we know where they want it.
And I don't know why the state didn't finish the job. They took the eucalyptus and dumped it.
Their job, their mission was to clean the sand, and it wasn't to put it back or build anything. And they did clean it very well, though.
So I don't have a problem going on record with my opinion of what I really think what I would like to see. If the Army Corps of Engineers does this project, there is no way that Bel Air Shore and South Bel Air Beach will get dunes or get good beach nourishment because they have nothing to offer. So they don't have because of the deeds, the deeded accesses, they don't have the authority to share that as public parking, and neither do we. I don't think anybody does. So that makes them automatically disqualified for beach nourishment from the Army Corps of Engineers, and so that's why they've always been skipped over, and they've never, not one single time, have they received beach nourishment. On the other hand, if the county is unable to somehow convince the Army Corps, the federal government, to go ahead and do the project, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. If it goes the way that I suspect, that the Army Corps is going to hold firm on their stance, and nothing changes, eventually there's going to be enough pressure on the county to have to do it themselves. There's opportunity if that happens, that maybe we might be able to work with Bel Air Shore and actually convince them to accept county sand instead of the federal sand that they don't qualify for. Because now they've seen firsthand what can happen to their property because they don't have any protection. And we see that home after home after home, everything's been washed out from under their property, and their pools are damaged, and all of that is because they've never received beach nourishment. And the little bit that happens to settle there after we do a nourishment project was not enough, because now no one's getting it. So if the county has to fully fund this project, I think it's to our advantage to try to work with Bel Air Shore to convince them that they need to get in on this project also. They sign the easement, it's a temporary easement, that gives them enough time to do the work. Everybody's got sand, and we're fully protected in Bel Air Beach.
Well, you're not going to believe this, but at the last Bel Air Shore meeting, we had a real good meeting discussing Bel Air Beach and Bel Air Shore, especially the mayor. And unfortunately, a lot of homes, I think, are having to demo Bel Air Shore's property. In fact, one of the commissioners is losing his home. And the beach access gates came. Now, they want to try to reinforce people going on those beach access gates by putting like a passcode in there and everything. They're going to have to rebuild everything like that. And he says that's going to cost money. And we're hoping Bel Air Beach will come up with some help there. But as you know, we're not going to be able to get federal funding for beach nourishment. And you were at the Army Corps of Engineers a year and a half ago, where the colonel clearly says when you leave that crater in there, it's going to go in there. And even Bob Schmidt says we don't take a beach nourishment, but we get a hell of a lot of sand with Bel Air Beach and Indian Rock Stones. So we really need what you just said, push that find strength or whatever to get, because I was talking to Commissioner Toller, and it was during the high tide, and the water was only like 3 feet from the seawall. And I said, this has got to alarm me. He said, damn right it alarms me.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Do we have any other unfinished business? All right, well, if not, let's move on to city council comments. We'll begin with Councilmember Shirley.
I have no further comments than
All right, up next is Councilmember Shaw Elliott.
Well, I want to wish everybody a happy new year, and this is certainly going to be a year of renewal. Our town is going to go through quite a bit of change, and I think with this renewal, hopefully there'll be renewed spirits as we look forward to really good changes, improvements that are going to be made. I'm very focused on the future and good things that are going to happen. If I can help in any way, I certainly welcome any of the citizens to contact me. One of the things that I would like to think about over the next year, and there's no time to deal with it with these ordinance amendments that are coming up soon, but as we look at our community and we look at the devastation over these last several months, I'd like to look at more sustainable native plantings, things that can withstand salt water, that may not always be consistent with our existing codes. And so I'd like to take on a personal study of that. If anybody's interested, certainly contact me and see, but I'd like to be able to start pulling some resources and find out as much as we can as far as how can we have a more salt-friendly, Florida native, lovely landscaped community.
Thank you. All right, up next is Councilmember Baker.
Just one thing, we had that meeting with Elevate Florida and FEMA a few weeks ago. I don't know how many people attended it. A lot of the neighbors I've talked to came out a little bit disappointed because they were hoping FEMA would interject. They made one sentence. They talked one sentence, entire one sentence. Okay, you don't have a problem telling you to tear your house down. And the only sentence was, we think so. And the person from Elevate Florida, she was super nice, but she kept saying under the dome of silence because when we were asking about funding and everything like that. But one resident brought up all these homes, and you mentioned it in your prayer, okay, that were sold. Are they going to be entitled to this Elevate funding money? And again, it's under the dome of silence. So I did contact our state senator and our state rep, Kim and Nick, and they don't have any answers for us either on that. But one of the things was the other person here with that small business and homeowners loan, very informative. I just want to let people know, if you want to get that loan, it's an interest-free loan. I believe the governor's looking at, it's an interest-free loan for 1 year. I believe the governor's looking to extend that for a few years. But the paperwork has to be in by tomorrow. From what I know, I don't think there's any extension.
Are you talking about the SBA loan?
Yeah.
Some of that information was incorrect. I've been dealing with the SBA on that and actually submitted an application and have been through the process. The low interest rate is available only to those who cannot qualify otherwise for a mortgage or don't have the personal resources to self-fund. Which makes sense from a government perspective. They're going to give the low interest loans to those people that are in need.
Did they give you a threshold on that?
No.
Because I went through the same thing, and they wouldn't give. They said you just have to submit your total.
That's right. And so,
Speak on the microphone, please.
so with the, what I was saying was that the information regarding the low interest loan is that they're available at the low rate only for those individuals who cannot otherwise qualify for a mortgage or who cannot afford to self-fund the improvements. There are loans available for others who don't meet that threshold, but it is at a much higher rate, and I think it's like 5.65%, something like that. So the information that was given at our session was incorrect.
The only thing I'm saying, Kim, is no one can give you what the threshold is.
That's
You know what I'm saying? Is my income $1 million a year? And
Yeah, but they also can't say, do you qualify or not?
Well, and that's why a lot of residents left, you know, a little bit upset because no one can give us some concrete answers. But anyway, Happy New Year, everybody. I hope it's a blessed and prosperous one. And everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Harper, you are up.
I have a question for Mr. Miller. As it relates to the determination of SD. We've got 50 properties that are structurally deficient or structurally damaged. Are those basically slated for demolition, or does that mean that they're been slated to be raised, or what does that determination actually mean for those 50 properties?
So at least 50% of those properties have just been determined substantially damaged from the estimator tool. So they do have a reevaluation process that can come through. And a lot of times that estimator tool is more, it errs to the conservative side that there's more damage than necessarily what it do. It just kind of takes into effect what really could have been damaged, but it's not always the case. So I believe a lot of those will, you know, they'll be able to get reevaluated and show that they can repair the structure at a cost that's less than 50% of the value. But there are some though that are coming out, and the owners are just they're opting, you know, based on the estimator, and I guess, you know, probably the devastation that they've gone through, they're opting to demo and rebuild without, you know, doing a reevaluation to repair what they had. So it kind of is coming down to each person's situation. Bel Air Beach fared very well compared to a lot of the cities to the south of us. So I'm finding that we're more fortunate just being a little bit higher, and we're going to have some that need to demo, and it's unfortunate, but it could have been worse.
Do you find that the 50 that were structurally deficient, were they concentrated in any particular area, or was it truly spread across the whole city?
So the reports that are coming out that, you know, that make sense to me are, you know, right back here by Cedar, Palms, Spruce, that area, the lower areas in the south. There's some sporadic ones, and I don't know if it's just kind of the way that all the calculations come together, the value, the structure, the age, but there are some that are surprising. But I just, you know, have to trust that they're giving me, you know, a consistent way of measuring, and then we go through the reevaluation.
Thank you very much.
Did you have any comments other than?
I have no other additional comments other than Happy New Year.
All right, Councilmember Welling.
Yes, yeah, wish everybody Happy New Year. I've been doing a lot of walking around over the holidays here and checking out the streets, and certainly with the last trash pickup, I'm actually pretty impressed with how clean most of the streets are. I mean, this town really is very proud, it seems like. You know, so I'm impressed with how cleaned up the areas are. There are a few little straggler houses that seem to need a little help maybe. And I noticed, you know, some of them were listed on the code enforcement and some are not on the code enforcement yet. Is that maybe just because the code enforcement guy is out and maybe he hasn't caught up the list yet?
He may, yeah, not have caught up and realized the condition.
Are we getting, so you mentioned, or someone mentioned that when the code enforcement guy report, he does also get maybe plans from the people. Do we get to see what, you know, if they communicated with these people that just a few people left that might need a little help, do we get to see their plans? You know, if they, are they communicating with us on what their plans are? And if they don't have any plans, you know.
Are you talking about just general plans on what?
On how they're going to handle, like there are no more pickups for them. So there's people that have huge piles outside, just a few, right? And, you know, have they provided any plans yet or any info back to us?
So where we're at in the process right now is he's done the courtesy notices.
Right.
He's going to circle back through, see if any action's been taken. The next step is going to be the code violation notice. That usually, if the courtesy notice doesn't do it, putting the formal notice usually kind of at least get someone to contact and talk through it, try to get some action. I really would, I'd be disappointed personally to have to take someone to a hearing over the deliveries, but
Right.
it could go that far.
To me, it would be just like, at least if they could explain the plan, you know, we're gonna have to give them a lot of, I think, leeway right now, considering that, you know, what happened, so, but do we get visibility of the plans? If they do come back with a plan, do we get visibility of that plan?
As far as just cleaning debris up that's in the right of way?
Yeah, as they clean up their own houses, yeah, or their own right of way, in the right of way, like, do they say, oh, I'm gonna, you know, maybe we just get to see. If I have a plan to address it in the next 3 months, or, you know, I'm really trying to have contractors that I've contacted, they're just not, they're so busy, they're not available, you know, because I think we want to give them a lot of leeway.
We're trying to be understanding, and if they communicate to the code enforcement officer it's something that's reasonable, matter of weeks, we're completely flexible with that. It's just we want to see that they're going to take care of it.
You're made aware of what gets communicated to the code officer.
So typically where it works is the code enforcement officer will deal, you know, with the violation, and then if they feel like, you know, they're not getting anywhere, trying to make contact with the courtesy, then they'll ask me to put a letter together if that's something official. But usually we try to get around it without having to go that far.
Okay. Thank you. Otherwise, I think we're good here.
All right. As everyone may remember, last month there was a heated conversation concerning the city manager's salary increase. As Councilmember Shirley stated, you cannot arbitrarily increase the city manager's pay without fully researching and amending the budget. For our next work session, I have requested that Kyle present recommended budget amendments to increase salaries for the city manager as well as the city clerk to 10% retroactively to bring them more in line with the wages of neighboring communities. As you know, that they both have done an exemplary job of helping us to recover and bringing relief to all of the community during the hurricanes. So if we're able to reach an agreement, we'll vote on the budget amendment in February. I think that 10% is probably more in line where we should be, but at the time and we still don't have a method to do that without going through the budget. So that's all I have to add, other than Happy New Year, and I hope everyone had wonderful holidays. And do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion is made by Frank Baker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jody Shirley. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Good night, everyone.